Well, I basically kick people's asses for a living. I like to say that anyways. And I work with vegans. So I've been vegan myself for almost 17 years now, and which is more than half my life. Pretty cool. And so I kind of made the decision halfway through my training career to focus on working with vegans. So I started as a fitness coach, working with people in gyms, like as a trainer, and was kind of thinking about getting into the online world, but knew that in order to do well online, you need to have a niche. It needs to be not just like, oh, I'm a random personal trainer who works with anyone, right? So I thought it would make sense to take what I'm passionate about, which is being vegan, and put it out into the world that I am a vegan fitness coach. I'll help you with your nutrition from a plant-based perspective. And that's kind of where it all started ballooning, because people are not just sitting there searching for personal trainers, although some people are. People are looking for specific things. And vegan fitness coaching and vegan nutrition coaching, that's some of the specific things people are looking for. So yeah, it just kind of started from there. I was working with people, I am working with people all over the world, which is really cool because they're all vegan or they're all needing help with the transition to go vegan. So right now I'm working with people in Dubai and Thailand and Romania, like everywhere, which is awesome. And it's really cool to see the vegan movement basically all over the world. So yeah, I mean, it's basically merging the vegan side of things. And I started as an ethical vegan, but as many ethical vegans, it's kind of expanded since then into the environmental reasons and sustainability, health reasons, all that other kind of stuff. So I'm combining that with the obsession with fitness, which has also been a long-term thing. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So I don't work with people in person anymore, it's totally online. But it means that location is not an issue for my clients, which works super well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like that was one of the things when I started my business online. Now I have my own training business, and I have people from like Macedonia, from the UK,
Yeah.
from all over the place that I never really expected to have these sort of interactions with. And that's where it was really mind blowing for me, was like the amount of reach that you can actually get once you do focus down on a niche, because that's one of the big things that I tell my clients as well, is to focus down on a niche and to really really drive home and become kind of like your expert inside of that niche, and expand out from there and kind of dig a bit deeper and go into layers. Like yourself, you're really into physical training, and then you dove deeper in going into vegan personal training as well. Which is awesome and excellent. And there's so many points there that I just wanted to kind of touch on a little bit. When you, what kind of pushed you to go from actually going as a physical coach to going online?
That's a really good question. So one of the major things was that my husband and I wanted to buy property, and it's possible, but not very feasible in Vancouver, because Vancouver is just ridiculous, especially for the type of property that we want, right? Like big house, big yard, separate garage for my gym, that's like not super feasible in Vancouver. So what we did was we moved to Powell River, which is on the Sunshine Coast. I mean, it's amazing. Like there's a forest outside my window. We're on the ocean. Like it's awesome. But it meant moving away 6 hours from Vancouver, which is where my clients were. So in preparing for this move, I was like, well, I'm already doing online coaching as a side hustle. What if I made it my main thing? And so I just jumped into it. Honestly, it kind of felt like starting a new business. It's very different, like all the marketing and SEO and just learning all of the stuff, because I was total newbie. It kind of felt like starting a new business, but it was kind of the location independence that really started it off. Like I had a client base in Vancouver, and if I ever wanted to live anywhere else, I would literally be starting from scratch in whatever town I moved to. So with online coaching, you don't have to do that, which is fantastic.
Yep, that's one of the benefits, and that's why I got into it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like what? Oh, someone wanted to talk to me. My phone just wanted to start talking to me. But yeah, just to kind of go over a little bit on that sort of side where it kind of clicked, like you wanted to purchase property and you wrote down these goals and what you had with you and your husband. And in order to achieve it, you knew that you had to make maybe some sacrifices going into it. Is purchasing property something that you always intended on going into and diversifying your portfolio?
Not really, honestly. I mean, it's a good option for stability. Like in Vancouver, we were in the same apartment for many years, but we still didn't feel like it was secure housing
Mhm.
because, you know, they're raising down all sorts of apartment buildings and building giant, you know, condo buildings and whatnot. So it didn't really feel like long-term stability, whereas owning your property is. But it wasn't really like a major, oh, I got to own property and check that off my bucket list. You know, it's basically just a means to an end, which is stability
Yeah, totally.
and getting a gym finally.
Yeah.
After 10 years of being like, oh man, wouldn't it be sweet to have a like really kick-ass garage gym? I finally do now, which is great. And I wouldn't not have been able to do that in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So it's honestly, it's more about lifestyle than it is about like, yeah, I got to own property, right? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, and totally, it would probably saves you so much time by not actually having to go to a gym too,
yep,
where you can actually work on your business in the
totally.
meantime. And like I remember a mentor of mine, Iman Gadji, he told me that his goal is to actually like build a gym out in his place so that he saves the time like going to and from the gym, like training and all that sort of stuff. He says he might save maybe about an hour per day or something like that just by going to and from, showering, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of like the big thing, is to just kind of save your time. So that's one of the really cool things about being able to move out from Vancouver, is to kind of like be able to, hey, I can now invest in like, say, a gym or something like that, instead of just investing in, say, maybe an extra foot of square
Yeah,
feet.
right.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
yeah. Was it an easy transition going from physical to online with your current clients? Like, did you keep most of your current clients when you went from physical to online, or did you have to kind of like reinvent yourself a little bit more? Because it's quite different for, at least when I was doing done for you with a client, moving them to done with you is a little bit of a different relationship. So if you want to talk a bit about your story with that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I kept some of my in-person clients, but as you said, it's very different, those two services. So some people need to have the appointment at the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. in order to work out, right? And for those people, in-person training is the only thing that works. They are not great online clients. Whereas someone who has a crazy schedule, I've got a lot of shift workers, someone who doesn't want to be tied down to a schedule, but still wants accountability. Those are the people who do really well with online coaching. So I kept maybe 20% of my clients. A few of those have dropped off because it's been almost 2 years now. But everyone else was new because they're looking specifically for the online thing. So yeah, it's one of those things where I think that's why it felt like starting a new business. Sure, I kept a handful of clients, but you know, they're on like VIP pricing and they're very low maintenance and I know them very well. And everyone else was new. So it was kind of a little bit of a combination, but mostly new people.
How did you start growing momentum with your online business then? Since it's a lot different to attract clients, say physically, than it is to online. Did you have to start building out a website, doing SEO? Did you have to start doing videos? Did you have to start reaching out to people on social media? What was kind of the process there for you when you were just starting?
Good question. So here's the thing. If I hadn't been working on it in the background for 8 years before I went online, this whole story would be totally different. So, you know, I have a blog, I had a website for years. I've been writing for magazines, like a live magazine. I'm on my third book right now. The first one was vegan related. The other two are fitness related. So like all of these things have been happening in the background while I was training people in person. So when I went online, I already have an online presence. I wasn't starting from scratch, which really helped. And as you know, it's a long game, right? So it took 8 years to go from random personal trainer to first result when you put in vegan personal trainer. And it's usually not location based, which is kind of nice. So like yesterday I was talking to someone in Madrid who typed in vegan coach in Madrid, and guess who showed up? I'm not in Madrid. So, you know, that was a very long game. And so Google and SEO is where I get 90% of my clients. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I feel like that would have been flipped if I hadn't done all of this work over the years. No books, no articles, no website. I probably would have had to use social media because there wouldn't have been a ton of other options. SEO, sure, but that takes a while to get to a point where it's sustainable. And the quick results often happen on social media. But for me, there's so much more value that I can generate with something like books and podcasts and writing versus like spending hours on Facebook. So I have maybe 10% of new clients coming from social media at this point. And so I try to use up only 10% of my energy and time on social media. It's basically just to show people I'm a real human, right? Like, is this someone I might want to coach with? Yes or no? But the website and the email list and the podcast is really where my audience is hanging out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically moral of the story is took 8 years. Don't feel like it's going to happen overnight. A lot of people are like, oh, SEO, I'll do it this week. And then I'll be at number 1 spot next week. Like, you know the drill. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, I think it would have been very different if I didn't have that whole background when I started. It really helped.
Yeah, totally. Because I have people that say that, hey, I want to like start going like first page on Google and I want that in the first month. I'm like, yeah, good luck with you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just, it's so crazy. And now that it's more and more competitive, you had that benefit of starting a community first thing 8 years ago. So you already built kind of your own personal brand and your own little community there. And so it was a lot easier for you to, I'm just assuming, like, I'm guessing you had like an email list and stuff like that when you were starting out, and where you can just send out emails either through personalized email or through an automation software where you can just send it out in bulk or whatnot. To that list that already knows who you are. You're already very warm. You've already built out rapport and a relationship with them. So if you're offering services, it's more likely that they're going to end up purchasing. And it's through an organic audience as well, which is the best way to actually go out there and be able to get work online. Was there a point during that time where you really thought like, hey, is this even possible? Is this, can I actually like sustain a living doing this online? Because I've been mostly online now for like the last year or so, but I dove into it around 2.5, 3 years ago when I graduated from DCIT. And after I worked corporate with Rogers and Promotions, I dove in, and there was moments, especially in the first 9-10 months, where there was so much doubt and so much just to kind of break over the hump. What was something that helped you break over that kind of like first couple years? Because it's all about kind of like building something, and then you're not seeing anything back. It's not like a job where you work an hour, you get paid your whatever, like your salary wage, 15-20 bucks an hour or something like that. Where if you're working online, you're working for an hour, you might not even see that hour's worth of work for maybe 3 or 4 years down the line. So what was kind of something? What was that? When did that moment kind of hit where, oh, it's kind of like a little bit of rock bottom, but then what did you use to kind of bring yourself forward and keep motivation in a sense?
Yeah, it's hard to say because luckily, I didn't really get to a point where I was like, oh crap, is this really going to work? Because it wasn't my only hustle at the time. So while I was starting with the online thing, which I think I started in 2015, my main thing was training people in person, which was like the bread and butter, right? So I think, again, it would have been a different situation if I just jumped into it head first and was like, okay, all I'm doing is online training, which I did do. I mean, when we decided to move in November of 2018, it must have been. So yeah, almost 2 years. That's when I went completely online. But by that point, I had a bunch of clients already. I'm not starting from scratch, just being like, well, guess I got to get some income now, but I didn't know what was possible. So there was definitely uncertainty about like, how much am I going to have to work? Is it going to be more work than before? Because I have no idea what I'm doing in the online world. Like all this was totally new to me, right? So I think it was more about uncertainty than anything else, not really knowing what the options are. Like in the online world, you make your own rules. There's no like step 1, step 2. There's 26 different ways of doing everything, right? And everyone has their own system. So I think that confuses a lot of people in, well, so-and-so did this and it worked. Oh, and so-and-so did this, which is the complete opposite, but it also worked, and there's just like an overwhelm of information and options. And so I just didn't know. Basically, my whole deal was like, well, let's see what happens. So I went into it with that kind of a mindset. Let's see. Let's just do an experiment. I called it a beta test. Like, hey, worst thing that happens is it doesn't work. And I just start an in-person practice in my new town, which thankfully I haven't had to do and won't, because now I know what's possible in the online world. So yeah, it was a lot of uncertainty. And I think what helped actually was connecting with people who are already doing what I wanted to do, who are way ahead of me. The importance of being surrounded by people who are challenging you, who are already ahead of where you are currently. So I found that super useful in taking courses, being in online communities with other fitness trainers online who are very specifically doing what I want to do, which is one-on-one coaching. Because there's also fitness coaches online who do mostly group programs, and I'm not interested in that. So it's very high ticket one-on-one coaching. And so connecting with other people who are already doing that really helped in some of the uncertainty. And yeah, they all have their own systems. Everyone's doing it differently. But just knowing that was possible, and knowing that some of the doubt, at least a little bit, was taken away by these people, that really helped. So if you can connect with someone who's already doing what you want to do in some capacity, even if it's a different approach, like these people weren't vegan trainers, but they're still training people online around the world. So you just take what you need, right? Take little pieces of what's useful, and you kind of build your own system over the years. So yeah, lots of uncertainty, lots of like, hey, let's just see what happens.
I love all of that advice, because that's a lot of the stuff that I end up talking about, as well as building out, not just joining communities of very like-minded people, but then I would take it a step where you mentioned courses. A lot of courses have paid communities and all that sort of stuff, or private Facebook groups that you only get access to in the course. And a lot of people always contemplate whenever they want to purchase a program or purchase a course, like, oh, I don't know if like this is going to be for me or whatever. And then the first thing that I would always say is, well, is there a private community involved? Is there a paid community? Because then those people are actually already in there. They're people that have already kind of like tricked, or they might have been in there for 6 months, a year. They could be so much further ahead of you. And that's kind of like where the bread and butter and where the actual investment goes into, is that private community. Because then you're now with a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of like-minded people, and also people that are just so many steps further ahead of you. And you can just kind of like pick brains and go through the search bars and stuff, and just see some of the questions and answers and stuff like that are inside those groups. Just not to take up too much of your time, because I think we have was it until 1 or 12:50?
Yeah, I got another caller 1. Yeah.
Another call on. Sweet. I'll wrap up in a few minutes then. So just to touch back, so just what you're offering right now, you're only offering one-on-one coaching, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Correct. And it was for 2 different things. It was for plant-based dieting, vegan, for like helping out with like vegan dieting, also with personal training as well, right? Those 2 different.
Yeah. So I've got 4 different programs, but it's a combination of either fitness, nutrition, or both. So yeah, it's basically the fitness, the nutrition. You can do either of those things separately. Like a lot of my clients are actually coaches themselves. So they don't need the fitness stuff in some cases, but they're a new vegan and they want to make sure that they're doing their food properly. So then they just get the food, right? Other people have their nutrition taken care of. They just want someone to kick their ass when it comes to fitness. So there's, food by itself, fitness by itself, and then 2 programs that are both, which honestly, most of my clients are in, because they're looking at their workouts and their food together. So yeah, it's all one-on-one. Occasionally I'll run a 4-week challenge. That's a group program, but that's like twice a year. And it's mostly one-on-one. I kind of like that style of coaching, like getting to know someone, getting to know their specific challenges, working through all them, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that. Yeah, that's where I find like a lot of the different personal relationships all come out, especially on the one-on-one. People are a lot more comfortable in sharing things as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So So that's kind of two different niches then, a little bit. If it's like with your inside of those communities where you wanted to end up doing personal training, but you've also been able to coach coaches with their own vegan nutrition. I really like that step there. That was something that brought a smile to me. As soon as I heard that, I was just like, you're doing it. You're so doing it right. And yeah, and that 4-week program. How many people do you usually allow into that 4-week program? Is it in what kind of structure do you make of your business, kind of percentage wise, between people that come in for nutrition, people that come in for physical training, and also that 4-week program?
So 4-week program is kind of just bonus. It gets people exposed to my style of coaching who may otherwise not be interested in the one-on-one stuff. So that's like icing on the cake, very small portion of anything. I work with 45 people at once as a max, and this is like individual clients. It's not quite full time for me because I'm also running my podcast and currently on deadline for my manuscript for my 3rd book. So I think there's more window there. Like if I don't have other projects going on, it could go up to 50, 55. But this is why I'm always like, well, I have 3 spots available, because I know what max I can deal with and where my clients are getting the attention that they need. So I would say a good half to 60% of my clients are doing both nutrition and fitness. And the rest are doing fitness by itself, mostly. So there's the occasional person who's just doing food. But with the nutrition stuff, it's not long-term. Like you do a month of hardcore nutrition coaching, you have your food nailed. You figured out your protein, you figured out how to be vegan, if that's one of your goals, if you're not already vegan, and you figured out, your macros, your calories, blah, blah, blah. That's not generally something long-term. Whereas with the fitness, a lot of people just like the accountability. They like someone else programming workouts for them. A lot of these people are coaches because they don't want to waste mental energy on creating their own programming. They're like, hey, you know my goals, just make programs for me, This is why I have a coach of my own. She just makes stuff for me and I go and do it, So yeah, it's about half people who are doing both food and fitness, and then the rest are still vegans, but they've got the food nailed. And so they're the longer term people who are, like 4 years later, I'm still working with them, making new workouts and stuff.
That's so awesome. Just one more question, and then we'll do some social plugs and stuff like that at the end. Last one, I ask this with everyone who I interview. If you could be any animal, both like wild or even domestic, if you could be any animal in this world, what would you be and why?
Dude, that's a good question. Well, my favorite animal in the world is kind of weird, but I'm obsessed with snails. Don't know why. My mom showed me this little thing that I drew when I was 4, which is like a little snail. So I've been obsessed with snails my entire life. Now, would I want to be a snail though? That's the question. I kind of feel like I probably should, because a lot of what I need to do is slow down. And so that's a pretty obvious way to really visualize what it would be like to slow down. So I think I'm going to go with that. I think my brain needs hey man, you need to turn off, you need to slow down. Let's not do a million things all at once. Let's just crawl along at a consistent pace.
I love it.
So I'm going with that.
Love it. Love it. And where can people find you?
KarinaInkster.com is the hub of all things Karina Inkster and vegan badassery. I am working on my 3rd book, so that's going to be coming out in the spring of 2020. Bookstores everywhere or Amazon. It's on resistance training with resistance bands. So basically workouts you can do anywhere, on the beach, in the park, while you're traveling, at home. Pretty awesome. And then Karina Inkster on Facebook and Instagram, but that's all on my website as well.
Beautiful. All those links and everything like that, I'll be putting in the description of this video as well, so you guys can be able to find that as well. And if you guys want to contact Karina, all that's going to be there as well. Karina, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, because I know that you're on another call in a minute because you're super busy. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me on. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Bye.
See ya.